All right, so yet another example. I'm going to look at asymptotes first. So when I look at this asymptote, I see that I've got a vertical asymptote at 0. So here's a vertical asymptote at x equals 0. So I know I've got to have just an x in my denominator. And I've got another vertical asymptote at x equals 6. So I've got an x minus 6 in my denominator. And then I notice, again, this one is very similar to the last one that we did. I notice that my numerator is x minus 4, which means I would have an intercept at positive 4. So all of these things start coming together. And then also, if you notice, I have an x to the first over an x squared, so a small over a big, so I would have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. So let's try another one. All right, so I want to find an equation for the rational function. So what I am looking at is, we're going to look at a few different things. So I'm going to zoom in on this. One of the first things I want to notice is that I've got X-intercepts. So I'm going to go through this in the same order that we were identifying functions. And we're just going to have to fill in a few more details. So one of the things that I notice is I have an X-intercept at negative 4. I have an X-intercept at 0. So my numerator needs to address both of the X-intercepts. So my numerator right now needs to be x for the x equals 0. It's really hard to see my axis. There's too many lines flying around here. All right, there we go. So that's the coordinate plane. And then the dotted lines are your asymptotes. So what I know so far is I've got this intercept at the origin, and so my intercepts are going to be reflected in the numerator. So I've got an x, and then I've got this one at negative 4, so I'll have an x plus 4 in my numerator. Okay? Well, now I need to look at my asymptotes. So I have a vertical asymptote right here, and remember your vertical asymptotes are going to reflect in your denominator. So I have a vertical asymptote that is slicing through the x-axis at negative 2, so my denominator needs to have an x plus 2 in it. Denominator needs to have an x plus 2 in it. So far we're good to go. The last thing I need to look at is I've got a horizontal asymptote at y equals negative 2. Okay, so we have to think about that. Y equals negative 2. The only way it won't be y equals 0 is if I have a same over a same. So I need a same over same. And now the issue with that is that my current numerator is an x squared, and my current denominator is an x to the first. So I'm going to square this so that now I have a same over a same. Okay? So the last thing I've got to do is force my lead coefficient to be negative 2, because it would be y equals negative 2. Okay? So my lead coefficient must be negative 2. So that is a possible equation for what we have sitting in front of us. So the purple stuff represents the x-intercepts. The yellow stuff represents the vertical asymptote. And the blue stuff represents the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so let's go through and do this one more time. So instead of going through with pictures, we're going to look at, we're going to look at x-intercepts. Okay, so we've got a list of things to do. So instead of looking at the possibilities, I'm just going to read off. I have x-intercepts at negative 2 and positive 4, which means I have a negative 2 and a positive 4 as intercepts, so x plus 2 times x minus 4 in my numerator. Okay, I've got a y-intercept at 0, negative 8, so I'm going to come back to him because he's the hard one. I've got a vertical asymptote at x equals 1. So I've got x minus 1. That's my vertical asymptote. And then again, here's this weird thing that's popping up. My horizontal asymptote is y equals 1. That must mean I have a same over a same. So if I have a same over a same, right now my numerator is an x squared. I need my denominator to be an x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and square that denominator. That way my vertical asymptote is represented by x minus 1. But I square it so that I can force that horizontal asymptote to happen. Okay, so now my final thing is my horizontal asymptote must have lead coefficients that equal 1. So they're already there. So far, just to clean this up a little bit, what I have is a numerator of x plus 2, x minus 4 over x minus 1 squared. And I've got those lead coefficients of 1 over 1 for my horizontal asymptote, so I'm good there. The last thing I need to do is make sure that my y-intercept is at 0, -8. So if I shove in a 0 here, and a 0 here, and a 0 here, do I get a -8? Well, I have an 8 on top. Hang on, let me erase some of the stuff. On the top, I am going to have a 2 times a -4, which is a -8. On the bottom, I'll have a -1 squared, which goes to +1. So that gives me my y-intercept that I was looking for. So this is what I'm looking for my answer. And so you have that in your multiple choice options. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to do one more of these. Okay, so here we go, because this one can be slightly overwhelming to look at. So what are we going to do first? We're going to do intercepts first. So let's zoom in some. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the coordinate plane. So if I draw the coordinate plane, he is right here and right there. So that is my coordinate plane. The dotted lines are my asymptotes. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to deal with my numerator first. I need to know what my x-intercepts are. So I've got an x-intercept here, and I've got an x-intercept here. So I've got x-intercepts at x equals 0 and x equals 4. So my factors would be x and x minus 4. Okay. Now I want to deal with my vertical asymptote. Vertical asymptote is going to represent where it slices through the x-axis, sorry. So there is my vertical asymptote. That is my denominator. So that slices through at +2, so I'll have an x minus 2. Okay, so now let's look at our horizontal asymptote. We have a horizontal asymptote right here, slicing through the axis at 2. So that tells me two things. I must have a same over a same because it's not slicing through at 0. And I need to incorporate a lead coefficient of a 2 over a 1 or a 4 over a 2 or an 8 over a 4, whatever. We're going to keep it easy and go with 2 over 1. So I need a same over same. Right now, this is an x squared over an x to the first. So I'm going to square him. Now it is same over same. Okay, now it is same over same. The next thing I'm going to do is incorporate this lead coefficient. So my lead coefficient needs to be a 2 over a 1. So there I go. That's what I've got. So that is another possible equation. So do your x-intercepts first. Do your y-intercept. Do your vertical asymptote. Do your horizontal asymptote. And then see if you need to incorporate a coefficient. So that is 3.5.